So the first thing I'm going to do today is show you how to bandage your arm. I'm going to bandage my right arm because I am right hand dominant, and I'm going to show you that even though I'm very unsophisticated at using my left arm, it is still possible regardless of which arm you're dominant with and which arm you have to bandage. You always want to have a stockinette or a base layer on top of your skin just to protect your skin from any irritation. I do have patients who want one less step in what they need to do. They've never had any irritation on the skin. They ask if they can do it without this. I leave that up to you and your therapist to decide, but it is best to have a base layer on the skin. Now, types of padding. There is cotton, soft padding, and then there is foam padding. Again, it is up to your therapist to show you what is the best necessary tools for you and your self-management, and they will help you figure this out. Lastly, you always want to have your tape pre-cut if possible. I like to use a surgical tape. We never, ever, ever want to use these because they are very sharp. If they puncture the skin, that can be a danger, that can cause an infection. We never, ever, ever want to use these when we're working against the skin. So I'm going to start by using my cotton stockinette and just cutting a little bit of a hole for my thumb. So you can see all for yourself that just one little snip creates a little bit of a hole and then makes it easy for me to get my cotton stockinette on my arm. So you gotta find your little hole, stick your thumb through it, and then pull the stockinette all the way up your arm. I prefer that the stockinette be a little bit snug so it doesn't cause any creases underneath the bandage itself. That is, again, up to what you and your therapist and your medical team decide is best for you. You want to get this as high up the limb as you can. If you're going to bandage your fingers, what you're going to do is pull this up first, so you don't have to pull this all the way up over your hand after your fingers are already bandaged. For fingers, we use small gauze. Now, gauze comes in two sizes, as you can see. It is easier to use the big gauze on fingers. But again, you can fold it in half. You can do whatever is going to be easiest for you. You may need more than one roll, so keep that in mind as you're getting started. To self-bandage, I am going to start by holding the bandage between my thumb and forefinger and just very easily wrap around here. I am then going to just hold this down, and I am going to now wrap below my thumb, and I'm not pulling the gauze really almost at all, and over my thumb, keeping my thumb open and covering my palm. Now I'm going to start going around the fingers. So I go around and I start at the thumb and I go around the thumb. 1, keeping the gauze as flat as I can, usually 3 times. 2, 3. It may get a little bit wrinkled right at the web space, that's okay. I'm going to go around the palm, all the way around, maneuvering my hand as I must to go to my second index pointer finger. I'm going to go around 3 times. 1, 2. Now, as you can see, I'm going around. I'm getting closer to the finger. It's getting easier for me to bandage. 3. I'm going to go around the hand and come back around towards the middle finger. And same thing, 3 times. 1, 2, 3. If you have very swollen fingers, your therapist may suggest putting some foam inside the fingers. It can be a soft or a harder textured foam. There are different ways to address thick fibrotic fingers. Make sure you talk to your therapist about how to add those in. We're going to go back down around. We're going to go to finger number 4. Remember, this may not be exactly the same way your therapist does it. This may not be exactly the same way you were taught in the past, but this is a very convenient way to do this on your own. So this finger is not coming out as smooth as I like, so I'm just going back and fixing the gauze a bit. And I got around a second time. And now what I'm gonna do, because I'm running out of length of this, is I'm just going to kind of stick it down towards the hand. Now, I recommend that you either tape this down, or what I like to do is just stick it under for a moment. Okay, so that's gonna keep that down. When I grab my next gauze, I'm going to finish bandaging starting right at the finger itself. I'm going to keep my fingers splayed apart, and I'm just going to create this one last wrap around my fourth finger. And it does take a little practice to get it down as straight as you can, but don't make yourself crazy. Then I'm gonna go around, I'm gonna get that little lagging piece down, and I'm going to finish by going around my pinky. Stay nice and close to the pinky. This is number 2, and I'm gonna finish with number 3. So now I have my whole hand wrapped, but as you can see, it's a little bit messy looking, and if you look down, you can see some skin in the web spaces of my fingers. Now, if you're bandaging your fingers, it's because you have swelling in the fingers and most likely the top of the hand. And we don't want that swelling to sit in these little web spaces. So what I like to do, I finished around the pinky. I'm just gonna do one more layer all the way around the hand and wrist. And when I get here, I'm gonna clean this up by coming through the web spaces. I'm just gonna go right through, pull it down, and then go around. I'm gonna pull up to the second web space, open those fingers as much as you can, and just pull it down. And when you come around, there is a little bit of a wrinkle, but it shouldn't be that bad. And if it is on the bottom of your palm, it's not that big a deal. What you're going to have to test is how comfortable or not comfortable it is once the bandage is complete, and fix it next time or work on flattening out as you continue to practice this. We're just gonna do that starting flat through every web space, bringing all that mess down. And I'm gonna go around because it was starting to get a little bunched, and finish with the last web space going right down and around. And now it doesn't matter, again, I can make a full fist, I can open and close, because for me, there's a lot of gauze left. I'm just going to cut this little piece off, and I'm gonna tape this down. It would have been easier if I had measured first and cut before I did this, but I wanted to show you. You may have extra gauze, you may have more gauze, you may just want to use one small piece to get in between the web spaces. Whatever you find is going to work best for you is what you need to do moving forward. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull this down. So this is going to protect the top of the hand gauze from rolling down and from moving. And it doesn't matter if the hole where the thumb gets a little bit bigger, but keep this flat as much as you can. Okay, so now I have fingers bandaged and my hand and arm are ready to go. For arms, I just find it easier for patients to use the cotton padding. If you're very swollen and if you're very thick and fibrotic, your therapist may recommend you use the foam padding. I'm going to show you just how easy it is to use the cotton padding, and then I will take it off and switch to the foam padding if that's what you're using. So I start by grabbing the end of the padding and just making a little hole to stick my thumb through. The bottom of the pad will again be at the bottom of the palm, the open part of the palm, so that when I start going around, the top of the hand or the dorsum of the hand that is typically the most swollen is fully covered. You can put another hole in, oops, if you need to keep that down. If it rips like that, no worries. We just start again and cover that piece down. right? So I'm showing you this and trying to be perfect, but nothing about self-bandaging is ever perfect. Mistakes will happen. How we deal with them instead of getting frustrated and wanting to run away, there are ways we just manage and we keep going. We want to do an extra layer or two right around the wrist in order to make our hand and arm as cylindrical as possible. Normally our wrist is a little bit narrower, right? But we want to try and make the arm as cylindrical as possible. So you can see now that I would need another piece of padding if I was going to continue up the arm with the cotton padding, so that my arm is much more cylinder-like versus going in and then back out at the forearm. I'm going to take the cotton padding off and I'm going to start with the foam padding so you can see how I utilize that all the way up the arm. Now when it comes to foam padding on the hand, what I've found is that cutting a small triangle at the top of the pad at an angle makes this much easier to utilize for bandaging. So you're going to take this little triangle away and you're going to grab the pointy part of the triangle right at the thumb. And then as you go around the hand, you will see that you have a nice little crease for where the thumb will move. You want to keep the bandage, the foam padding, excuse me, really tight against the hand. And then you're going to go over that hand again. Stay real close. This foam padding will bend just a little bit, okay? You still want to make your wrist as cylindrical as you can. I'm keeping this close to my body and making it snug, but right now there is actually no compression happening. Keeping it on and snug is key without pulling, okay? We're not pulling tight, we're not compressing yet, we're just patting the arm, keeping it close. Okay, as I go around, one of the most important things you'll notice with the padding is that there's not too many big lumps and bumps, okay? Gets a little tricky around the elbow. Just go all the way up around it. Bend that elbow a little bit. Remember, I said that's one of my tips and tricks. Keep the elbow bent just a little bit as you go up the arm. Once we get to this little amount, again, my stockinette should be a little bit longer, but I can just let this unwind and this will go all the way up. And now I have my padding on, my elbow can bend nicely, and I'm gonna tape this down. Keep it against my body until I can tape it down. Now, what I wanna go back and show you is the palm of my hand. Remember, I was holding on to this, so it's gonna stick out. Keeping my hands splayed apart, I'm going to tape this piece down as well. So you just take that and you tape that down. Does not have to be perfect. This will keep the padding in place. This allows you to move your arm and it allows you to get the proper padding on the top of the hand. Okay, now we're up to the good stuff. We're gonna start with the smallest bandage. For me, I'm using a 6 centimeter because I have a relatively small hand. If you have a big hand, a big swollen hand, you're gonna start with a probably 8, maybe even a size 10 centimeter bandage. I'm starting with a 6. I'm going to hold the bandage down with my thumb. I'm going to splay my fingers and go around. And now I'm just gonna hold it. I'm gonna wrap around, hold it down, splay the fingers, that's 2. I'm going around the knuckles 3 times, and 3. Once I've done that, and I've got my good base, I'm gonna go underneath the thumb or over the thumb, depending on how you're looking at it. And I'm gonna go around and back up, okay? My last one, I open that thumb, I splay those fingers as far as I can. I go through there and up there, so there's a little bit of an X at the top of my hand. And now I'm really gonna start pulling. So every half turn, I'm gonna pick up the slack, I'm gonna go around I'm gonna pick up the slack. Go around. Now you want this to angle up your arm. I'm gonna go around, pick up the slack. Go around, pick up the slack. Go around, pick up the slack. What I didn't mention before is that each layer needs to overlap the previous by 50%. If you overlap too closely together, you will have small spaces. If you don't overlap enough, you will have big spaces. But most importantly, if they are not consistently 50%, you will not get the proper compression up the limb of the arm. So we're gonna do 50% overlap, pull, back, 50%, pull. This is where my next trick comes in. You wanna weight bear through the arm, keeping these fingers apart. I use my treatment table here. You can use a bed, you can use the kitchen counter, whatever you have. Get your legs in a position so that it's easy for you to maneuver. You're going up the limb, so your bandage is facing upwards. You're gonna go around, and you're gonna go around. Pull, 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 pull. Staying 50%, pull, pull, pull. Now, if you're doing it right, the first bandage should end right around at the elbow, okay? So I am not swollen. My bandage is just a little bit too long, but what I'm gonna do is just set it down. Wherever it falls with no tension, and tape it down. Okay, bandage number 1 is done. Number 2, I take the next size bandage. The hand and wrist is the hardest part of this bandage, so watch closely. Many therapists will tell you you must change direction of the bandage each time you go around. It helps if you do that, but it is not mandatory. If you are pulling too tight and you go in the same direction each time, you could create a twisting or a torque on your limb that is going to be uncomfortable. This is the reason why we suggest changing direction. If it is uncomfortable, remember which way the last one went and change it for the next one. It is not integral to change direction if you have no discomfort at all. So for bandage number 2, we're going to lay this down. Now, when you're putting the bandage on, remember we want the bandage to come up the limb as we move up. So you're gonna lay it over the wrist, angling down towards the pinky finger or down towards the finger. And as you come around, you're gonna anchor this in. Remember, you don't have to pull, we're just anchoring it down right now. And as you come around, the bandage will go up. So now it's anchored down. I'm gonna hold on. I'm gonna pull up a half turn. Pull at the half turn. Come around, 50% overlap, pull. Pull, staying close to my body the whole time. Pull, 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 pull. At the elbow, for the first bandage, I don't change anything or make anything complicated. Just go around halfway, keep the elbow bent a little bit. %50 overlap. Oops, looks like my tape came off. And at the end, no big deal, 50% overlap. Ooh, gets a little bit tricky at the top. Around, around, and all the way up at the top. Now, if you're like me and you didn't cut enough tape, what you're gonna do is let this come out and just tuck it under so you can get some more tape. Tuck it in. I'll be right back with more tape. Put tape on, pull it snug, and tape it down. For the very last bandage, you're gonna do the same thing. You're gonna angle down towards the fingers so that when you come around, the bandage will head up the limb. So just lay it down, angle down a little bit, come on up, oop. And then when you go around, pulling every half turn, it's heading up the limb. So that you don't get too tight. I'm just gonna lower my stance here. You don't get too tight at the elbow. You're gonna keep it bent, and I'm gonna show you how to do a figure 8 at the elbow. So right when you get right to the crease of the elbow, you're going to make a bigger angle up the arm and come around. And then when you get to the other side, you're gonna come down over the elbow, making an X right in the elbow joint, right in the crease of the elbow. Then when you come around again, it's heading back up at the crease of the elbow. You're gonna go up, pulling every half turn. This is a cheat, that's perfectly legal. Every half turn, 50% overlap. Again, I'm not swollen, so these bandages are showing as a little bit long, but 3 bandages, sometimes 4, are pretty typical for an arm, okay? Every half turn, we're picking up the slack and pulling, picking up the slack and pulling. At the very end, if there's a little extra length, this is a brand new bandage, so it's sticking to itself. You just tape it down so there's no tension at the top, creating a tourniquet. Tape it down, voila, arm is bandaged. I can move my elbow, I can move my wrist, I can open and close my fist. My arm is complete. You will know after you've done this a couple of times what is comfortable, how tight to pull, making sure your overlap is even. As I rub up the bandage, nothing is coming up. If it's too loose, these will slide up. These are the little tips and tricks that you'll learn the more you continue to do this. Thanks for watching the arm. Stay tuned so you can see how to bandage a leg.